Well, first of all, Josephine Decker, thank you for taking the time to talk to me about your film, Shirley.
Oh, well, thank
Congratulations.
you. Thank you, Chris Gore. What an evocative last name.
Yeah, well, it can be good, it can be bad, but
Yeah, right.
what can I say? But this film is not, some have described it as a thriller. It's a lot more than that. I was not aware of the story of Shirley Jackson, the horror author. What drew you to this story? What makes it so unique?
Well, I think it's funny, like Sarah Gubbins, our writer, I think she really got inside of a time period. I think she I don't know what she did. I mean, she obviously we both read almost everything that Shirley wrote, but I think she really like plugged herself into 1948. And it's almost like you're watching a film, one of those really good dialogue film. What is the Friday? His Girl Friday or something like that.
Mhm.
There's some fucking masterful dialogue films from that era. And I feel like she did a feat of fun punchy dialogue, which I don't know that we've had that in a film in a minute, so it was really fun to get to obviously partner with that. But on a deeper level, I think she drew an incredible character. Shirley is so complex and kind of she's both like tortured, and she loves to torture, and she's messy, but she's also really committed and dedicated to trying to figure this book out. And I think there was clearly a world Sarah had conjured. So I was just excited to enter that world and to try to, do homage to Shirley. We wanted the film to feel like a Shirley Jackson story, because I think we're both huge fans of hers, and didn't want a biopic. I don't think this is a biopic. This is really if you took this awesome author and put her into one of her stories, this is maybe what would happen.
Well, Elizabeth Moss is remarkable in everything, but this is unlike anything I've ever seen her in.
Wow.
She's also a producer on the film. So, what was it like working with her? Clearly, she was committed not just to be, in front of the camera, but also working behind the scenes as a producer.
Oh, she was, wow. So she's a force of nature. She is amazing. I mean, I honestly, I do not know how she does. She clearly just loves her work, because there's no way you can bring that much energy to everything. And she's like, she's in everything. And yet when she shows up, she's really, really there, and she's 100% in. And so it was really exciting to have her so dedicated to the project. And I think she's felt a connection with Shirley, and I think she wanted to explore well, I don't want to project, but I think there was something seething in her that comes through in the character. There's a real, I always think Lizzie she has a universe inside of her, and she really unleashed that for us, and I feel really grateful that we got to share that in our film.
Well, I mean, Elizabeth Moss has so much range from comedy to drama to, like I say, Shirley, which is not like any way I've ever seen her.
Mm.
I have more questions, but I really want to ask about. I'm a huge fan of Christine Rashon. I think that she's such an amazing producer. Her company, Killer Films, has created so much great work. Can I ask you about working with Christine Rashon?
Yes. I mean, I have to say, Killer Films, they are very good at what they do. I mean, they can just hold it down. And I think one of the things that I loved about both Christine and David, one of her partners at Killer, is that they've just seen it all. They just are not fazed by anything. And as a director, I try to be like emotionally calm, but the person that I need to go freak out to is the producer. Like, I have to be calm to everyone else, but I need to be able to go freak out to them. And the great part of them is that they're always like, we've got it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's not even a thing, and they have such a cool, calm exterior that it just helps me do my job better, because I don't worry about anything that I don't need to worry about. And even the things that I probably do need to worry about, I'm able to go into them with fresh energy and with a feeling of groundedness. And I honestly think that is priceless. I would work with them on everything. They're stunning partners.
Well, I think clearly, the work that comes out of Killer Films is work that is challenging and takes a lot of risks, and Shirley certainly does that. What I want to talk about the relationship of Shirley to her husband, which is this bizarre tit for tat, contentious, like that. It's riveting to watch. How was it fun for the actors to do that, because the dialogue is just so, like you pointed out, the dialogue, which is it definitely remarkable and stands out, but like what was it like to have for Elizabeth to pull that off? Like I just thought that dynamic was amazing.
Well, I mean, obviously, yeah, we all had a lot to work with in this great script. And then Lizzie and Michael just, I mean, that's a magic duo. I wish that they would do 10 more films together, because they're such complementary actors, and they just loved each other too. I think they got a lot out of working together, and they inspired each other, and they freed each other up to try things differently. And I think, and it was actually really interesting, because I think they helped me understand that Shirley Stanley relationship more. Because you could look at that relationship and say, wow, that's just a pretty emotionally abusive relationship. How could you want to stay in that? But there was this joy and play between them that makes you really invested. You want them to win in a weird way, even though it's wicked. And then Odessa and Logan are just also such visceral and insightful and very like free performers, and I think I couldn't believe that Odessa was able to pull off this. This film is a big film, and she's really carrying us through the whole thing, and she was 20 when we shot this. I mean,
Oh,
so
wow.
it's just, she just has this level of maturity in her performance that's like way beyond her years. And obviously Logan is just a very dedicated performer, and really I think he was so kind to Fred. I think he did a great job of not turning Fred into a bad guy, but he was just living him, which I think he had a lot of empathy for that character. So I loved all the choices that our actors made. I think that all the characters grew way more even more complicated than they already were.
Well, it's such a nuanced performance. I mean, and the dynamic and the relationship between Shirley and Rose, I think that's really the core of the film. Can you talk about that and what it was like for Elizabeth to work with Odessa on that, on the dynamic of
Yeah,
working together?
I think they had a blast together. They had it's so funny, because when we were casting Rose, when we were casting Odessa, I think one of the things that we saw in her that was so exciting and was that Rose could easily be this, much more fragile character who's a little bit perfect or trying to be perfect. And there was something inside of Odessa's performance of her that was already kind of bristling and thorny and like ready to break out. And that just felt so alive. And I think that was something that I think that the woman really connected about. I think that's inside of both of those actors and performers. And they just, Lizzie and Odessa have this kind of this deep well of emotion and energy and possibility inside of them. So then when they get to connect, it's like ding, 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 you get the the sparks in every direction. So yeah. And I'm trying to think if there's any specific examples of scenes where I think the mushroom scene was just so much fun.
Oh,
We just had
right.
so much fun playing with that scene, and obviously Lizzie's performance in that is like it's another world that you end up in. But they were always, and they did a lot. I have to say that they really supported each other. I remember that we did one scene there was a kitchen. We called it the midnight kitchen scene, when they kind of accidentally meet in the kitchen in the middle of the night, kind of partway, like maybe 30 minutes into the film. And I remember that we had some great takes on Lizzie. And then I was like, okay, we're going to move over. We're going to get Odessa's coverage. And I tell Lizzie that so that she knows she can kind of pull back. She doesn't have to go so far. And then she gives and we were so grateful that we were on a roving camera that can move back and forth. When you do someone's coverage, when you're in a Josephine Decker movie, your coverage isn't necessarily on your face the whole time. It's very loosey goosey. So we were planning to get Odessa's coverage, and then Lizzie wanted to give her a really good performance so that she would be able to perform. And then she gave the strongest performance. And we were like, and I was so glad that our cameraman knew, like he could sense it happening, and he's like, you know what, we'll just do this one on. Let's see. And it was just, and I just felt that was a great example of their generosity with each other, that she would offer that much to her partner in the scene. And then obviously Odessa had a lot to work with in her takes. And so it was a really exciting partnership.
I did want to ask you about that mushroom scene, but also about just Shirley's way of, I guess, tormenting strangers, which I thought was amazing. I just wonder, like, how close is that to the actual Shirley Jackson, and is that reflected? I'm not familiar with her work as an author, so I'm just curious where that came from.
Yeah, she has a real I mean, a lot of her main characters are sort of misanthropic. I mean, I'm thinking of We Have Always Lived in the Castle, which has, you know, a slightly murderous main character. So like she loves who she loves, and if she doesn't love you, she's happy to get rid of you, you know, like. And so I think Sarah picked up on that in Shirley's writing and really let that come through, and let Shirley be this kind of acerbic and difficult to win over woman, which I think is part of the pleasure of the film, is that you're trying to win her over as well.
Well, there's that awesome scene where she at the party where she pours the red wine on the sofa.
Yes.
That I don't know. I just I was on her side, oddly.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yes, she knows who to target.
I'm curious how audiences have reacted to the film, because it also deals with depression, and I'm just curious what audiences are taking away from that, because I feel like it could be misunderstood in some ways.
Oh, what do you mean?
Well, I just wonder, like, the way that her depression is handled. I think it's done extremely well. I think it's handled with a lot of sensitivity and understanding. And so I'm just curious how audiences have reacted to that.
You know, well, I think we're about to find out, right? The film hasn't been released yet, so we've had our Sundance screenings, and then that's that's mostly it for audiences. We had a bunch of feedback screenings, obviously, but those were more about the many other things that we had to work through in our film. But I appreciate you saying that, and I think maybe thematically, a lot of the work that I've made has dealt with mental illness in some either explicit or inexplicit way, and so I think. In this film, it's to some degree fairly inexplicit. We never say what's going on with Shirley, but I think you see signs of it, and her drinking, and not wanting to get out of bed, and then becoming increasingly motivated around a goal and around a relationship. I think, which I think feels. I think everyone's experience of mental illness is very different, but I think in this story, it felt appropriate that once she meets someone who kind of, that she connects with or is inspired by, she is able to kind of get herself going.
Well, Josephine Decker, congratulations on Shirley. My understanding, it's out June 2nd.
June 5th.
June 5th. Okay. Thank you for the correction. And congratulations on the film.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thanks for talking.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. Bye.